Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Yoga for Students, Bhakti, Gyaan, and or Karma, Acharya with NIT Jamshedpur, 2023. So this is interesting. Well, besides the Gyaan, I always call it Gyana. But anyways, is one perhaps Bhakti and Karma seem to always be the same. Gyaan and Jnana Yoga is always pronounced a little bit differently. Again, it probably goes back to the language, the local language. But the more interesting thing is the fact that not a lot of at least Advaita Vedanta that I talk about talks about Bhakti, Jnana, and Karma Yoga, whereas Raja seems to be very, how do I say, not talked about too much. I wonder why. Is it because these are the basic, the three intros, the things that are very immediate, as in Bhakti, your devotion, Jnana, your knowledge of who you are, and Karma, your actions and your thoughts? Those are immediate results because these are the things that we can see and acknowledge very easily. Whereas Raja is something with meditation, which is perhaps maybe more difficult or just not something that we do every day compared to these three. That's the thing I kind of find interesting. It's like I always hear these three the most, but Raja is always the one that's, how do I say, I have to seek out specifically. Whereas generally speaking, when you think of Advaita Vedanta, you think of these three.
Good evening, sir. My name is Utkarsh Shukla. I am second year student of NIT Jamshedpur. And my question to you, what is the true essence of Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga in the spirituality for the student? And how can a student ensure that we will not influence by the any false interpretation of the spirituality?
Read the source.
See, there are three popular paths
Okay, they're popular.
in spirituality. There are many, but these three are the most popularly accepted ones. So, Bhakti, Karma, and Gyaan. It has to be understood that these three are not isolated or exclusive. They are one. How?
Yeah. How?
The mind is a restless entity. The mind is constantly in a state of discontentment. Do you experience that?
Yes.
It does not matter what the situation is, whether you have won, whether you have lost, whether you are young or old, rich or poor. The mind is never fully satisfied. There always remains something missing. If there always remains something missing, what does that tell about the state of the mind? If there always remains something missing?
That's the mind. There's the state of something missing. For me, it's not like that. It's, to me, the mind always seeks. It seeks answers, I guess you could say. To me, that's a better explanation for my mind. It's not that it's sorry.
What does that tell about the state of the mind?
It's not that it's missing anything. It's that it's just seeking. Seeking whatever happens to be at the moment. It's not necessarily like always seeking, but it always seeks to. Could you say that's missing? Seeking and missing? I'd say there's a difference for me. Seeking and missing are two different things. Missing means that you have something and you lost it. It's missing. It has that kind of connotation. Seeking for me is, it's not necessarily that you lost something. It's that, maybe something came up and then you're looking for it. I guess it kind of seems similar. but it's more along the lines of seeking an answer to whatever the situation is. And I guess you could say that, well, if that situation comes up, then you're missing the answer. I could see it being interchangeable, but it's a bit different for me. It's not like to me, it's not you're missing something. I guess missing's a bit of a thing that you've lost. That's included in my definition of missing, is that it's lost. And for me, seeking doesn't necessarily mean that that you're always seeking. Again, this is strictly from me. That it's just that when something comes up, you seek an answer for it. So, for example, when someone wants to make plans, I seek answers for the plans. If no one's making any plans or anything, I am no longer seeking for anything. But this one seems like no matter what you're doing, if you're missing something, you're always searching for it. You're always wanting to find it. I don't know. It's almost interchangeable, but for me there is a bit of a difference.
There always remains something missing. It means that the mind wants satisfaction.
Right there, I guess there it is. That's the thing, is that my mind doesn't seek satisfaction. It just seeks answers. Mine is content, but when something comes up and I need answers, it seeks it. Whereas, what he's saying essentially here is that your mind is missing something, and it's missing satisfaction, therefore it's always trying to look for it, looking for satisfaction. It's always missing. We're seeking something, it's not necessarily... I guess the big thing is the fact that my mind only seeks if something needs seeking. And it's not satisfaction. That's a different thing. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Aren't these two statements equivalent? I say I am constantly dissatisfied. And I say I am constantly in want of satisfaction. Aren't these two statements the same? So the mind is constantly looking for someone, longing for something, is being attracted to something. What is that something? In different contexts, that something has been called as realization, peace, fulfillment. Rest, health, security. So people have known that. They have said, sometimes they say, oh, the mind is, constantly wanting peace. Why? Because the mind is in a state of general disquiet, peacelessness. There is an inner violence, an inner strife, a constant inner struggle and churning. So the mind wants peace. That can also be said as that the mind is in love with peace. Similarly, you could say that the mind is in love with realization or freedom. So those who have known have told us that the mind is a constant lover. The mind is eternally in love. In love with what?
Peace.
Yeah, you could call that peace or understanding or realization or freedom or joy. Whatever suits you in your context. But what is certain is that the mind
Understanding.
is always and very deeply wanting something. So that comes first. The deep urge of mind to know, to be blissful, to dissolve, to come to rest. The mind has that deep urge. That deep urge, we are saying, can also be called as a deep love. That deep love is bhakti. Bhakti is love. I am not yet there, but I desperately want to be there. That is love. So yoga, which is final union, always has to begin with bhakti. And bhakti is not something that you do. Bhakti is your fundamental state of disquiet. The very word bhakti refers to someone who is fragmented, who is separated. Comes from the root bhaj, the same root that gives rise to the word vibhajan. What does vibhajan means? Division.
Separately.
Two separate entities. So here I am, but my utterly desired state is somewhere else. My current state is of lovelessness. My desired state is of absolute love. My current state is of illusion and ignorance. My deeply desired state is of realization and understanding. My current state is of suffering. My loved state is of joy and bliss. So that's the division we are born with. So I'm calling that as the fundamental state in that sense. We are all born lovers and we are separated from our beloved. So bhakti definitely comes first. Bhakti is the most fundamental thing. Bhakti is not something that you need to practice. It is something that you need to realize. You need to realize that you are separated. This realization itself is bhakti.
Interesting. I believe Swami Sarvarpyananda talks about the different schools in Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta. Jeez, I sound so funny saying that. But and if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. Like these four schools prioritize the different ones first, saying the ultimate one is this. Oh, it's the ultimate one. Ultimate one's karma. Ultimate one's bhakti. Ultimate one's raja. Ultimate one is jnana yoga. And then they have the steps to what you start off with, and the next, and then the final one. If I remember that correctly, and I'm wondering if he follows that particular path as well. Like, what is the ultimate then? Would it be Raja Yoga? So far as this, Bhakti is the first one. I'm wondering which of the four schools follows Bhakti as the first.
Bhakti is not about following certain rituals or practices or doing certain things in a certain way. It is about realizing that you are not yet inwardly complete. Do you see that? The state that I must have is not the state I currently am in. This is bhakti. And I have a deep, deep longing to reach that beloved state. And that beloved state, when you see it little more closely, it is not even a state at all. It is just a dissolution, but that can be kept aside for the while. So there is a state. Let's just stick to that. There is a state that I must reach, and there is a state that I currently am in. And the state I am in gives me sorrow and frustration and just so much inner restlessness. Do I like this state? I don't like this state. I want to be there. So that I call as my beloved. That which I want to be, that which I must be. And if I don't be that, then I'll be condemned to a life of suffering. That's my beloved.
I would have phrased that a state of not suffering but wanting, which wanting then causes suffering. I think for me that would make a bit more sense, because it's like me wanting that, I guess it is suffering, but it's because of the wanting of it. Because you're incomplete, you want to be complete. The wanting of it, suffering. A little bit.
That's where I need to reach. This is bhakti. This is bhakti. Do you understand this? Now,
I will say that's the first time I heard bhakti spoken like this. I've always heard it as I've always understood it as devotion, but also understood it as love as well. And love is following a deity, or for me, which I prefer, is more more along the lines of like humanity, people, love for people or devotion to people.
just experiencing that separation is not enough, because we all do experience that separation. What is the proof of that separation, of that experience? The proof of that experience is that we are
Wanting.
restless, we are anxious, we feel insecure, we feel jealous, we feel jittery in front of several kinds of fears. So we know that there is a separation. We experience it. But do we totally realize the nature of that separation? If we do not realize that, then we'll be like a patient who will experience the symptoms of the disease but will never know what the disease actually is. Is experiencing the same as understanding?
I would say no.
Please tell me. Is experiencing the same as understanding? You can experience something for 100 years of your life
And never,
without understanding it even one bit.
I mean, the example he gave about the patient, you're experiencing pain, but you don't understand where it's coming from.
Is that not true? You make a cat sit in front of a laptop and she can sit there for 10 years and experience what is going on without understanding any bit of what's really going on. So we experience the separation, but merely experiencing the separation will not end the separation. How do you end the separation? By knowing the nature of the separation, by knowing the nature of the separated ones. Who am I? Now this is Gyaan Yoga. So after Bhakti comes Gyaan. After Bhakti comes Gyaan. You see that Gyaan is a very, very obvious follower of Bhakti. Do you see, you cannot have Gyaan without Bhakti, and you cannot have Bhakti that doesn't lead to Gyaan. And then once you realize what the nature of that separation is, how come you have landed in your present state? Where does all the turmoil and the strife come from? Once you have seen that, then your actions change. You stop chasing your animal instincts and your egoistic desires. You start seeing that all the desires that you have will keep you basically separated from your beloved. You need just one desire, which is to unite with the beloved. All other desires are just distractions that will continue your state of sorrow and separation. And so you invest all your energy in just one fundamental desire, and you keep the other desires away. You say, I'm young and I have energy and I have time, and that has to be very rightly invested. I'll invest all my time in just one desire, because my fundamental sorrow is separation from that one. That one. Therefore, all my desire must be targeted towards just that one. Hence, I must have how many desires? Just one. So all the other desires must be kept aside. This is called Karma Yoga or Nishkam Karma Yoga. So do you see that Karma Yoga will always follow from Gyaan Yoga? Do you see this? So Bhakti is your very current state. Bhakti is to experience separation. Gyaan is to realize the nature of separation. And karma is to act in a way that ends the separation. These three are one. These three can never be disjoint. So to say that there are three separate paths is to not understand the very nature of our hollowness, our disquiet, and our inner essence. People talk of these three as if these are three different streams leading to the same ocean, and that is how it has been variously depicted as well, right? So there is one stream called the stream of Bhakti, then another stream of Gyaan, then another stream of Karma Yoga. It's not that way at all. These three are one. These three are one.
I would never saw. I've heard there were three, of course, but I've also heard that obviously you're never just in one. You're always following the four. Well, the three. Raja Yoga seems to be always out there somewhere. But I wonder if you can make the argument. Say, I wish I need to. I guess I need to listen to his explanation of Bhakti, Gyaan, and Karma Yoga. Because I could say you need Gyana first. Why? You need to realize who you are not. Then when you start realizing who that is, and a little bit of a touch, you need to be Bhakti, to be devoted to who you are. Ignore everything else that you're not. Devote yourself to who you are. And then once you start following the path of devotion to who you are, then act upon it. Karma Yoga. So the flip between Gyana and Bhakti Yoga. Find out who you are, or at least a little touch of it. Find out who you're not. Then focus and devote yourself, your love to yourself, to who you are. Once you have that devotion there, then finish it off with Karma Yoga by acting upon it, thoughts and actions. Then once you do that, Raja Yoga. I don't know if you'll get to that. I don't know if that's part of. Well, he says these are the popular ones. Okay, that makes the most sense. Yes. It's kind of weird that I guess Raja is the last thing. I remember someone saying Raja Yoga being the very easiest one, but I've always thought it'd be the most difficult because it's meditation, and you need absolute control of your body in order to not get distracted so much. But let me know. I can easily see Gyaan being the first, then Bhakti, because like I said, find out who you are and who you aren't. Then once you do that, once you kind of have that realization, focus, as in devote yourself, devotion, Bhakti Yoga, to who that is, who you are, and then Karma Yoga to take actions and thought towards that.
The Bhakt will have to be a Karma Yogi.
But then again, I guess you could say since all three paths are the same, I guess anyone could be the first, maybe.
The Gyana Yogi will never truly know himself if he does not have a burning desire to know.
Devotion.
Atma Gyan. Gyan basically means knowing your own nature. Why am I separated from that beloved state? So Gyan Yoga is knowing yourself, your own nature. Why will you bother to know yourself if the deep desire to have that knowledge is not incinerating you from within? Animals do not know themselves, nor do they want to know themselves. There is no need. Why will a human being invest himself in knowing himself? Because there is love. So it all begins with love. It begins with love, moves to attention, and then becomes action.
Okay. So there must be that burning desire for you to want to find out who you are first, as opposed to just wanting to know who you are and then devoting yourself. I guess there must be that devotion first.
Love, attention, action. Is that not how it operates even in your daily life? The baby is crying. The baby is crying. Why do you rush to the baby? Love. Once you go to the baby, what do? You pay attention. You pay attention. Why is the baby crying? You realize that the nappy needs to be changed. And then there is action. Love, attention, action. Bhakti Yoga, Gyaan Yoga, Karma Yoga. And these three are one. What kind of mother would be that who would rush to the baby and then find the baby crying and then stand there and clap? Obviously, if there is bhakti, there has to be action. What kind of bhakt would not be a karma yogi? Only some fraudulent kind of bhakt. And what kind of a karma yogi would not be a bhakt? How can you be a desireless actor? Karma yoga does not mean to act in any haphazard random way. Karma yoga is nishkam karma yoga. Acting not for the sake of various random desires. That's nishkam karma yoga. How can you say you are a karma yogi without first of all having that fire of love burning within you? That would be some kind of pretense. No? So these three are one, and it always starts with the experience of separation, which we all anyway do experience. Who does not experience that separation? Look at any person. It's writ large on his or her face. Yes, the fellow is separated. It's right there in our eyes. Is it not? So, the experience of suffering is everywhere. Hence, what do we start with? We start with trying to know the nature of suffering. So, typically, I start with my people with Gyaan Yoga. Not because Gyaan is superior to Bhakti, but because the experience of separation is anyway there. It is already there. Hence, I try to start with Gyaan Yoga, but not always. There are times when people are not experiencing that separation at all. They say, no, there is no problem, no conflict in life. We are just happy. And then the task of the teacher is to first awaken them to their own sorrow. You have to awaken them to their own sorrow. Unless there is a realization that you are in trouble, why will you try to act to pull yourself out of trouble? And there are a lot of people around who will say, no, we are not in trouble at all. Life is wonderful. Life is beautiful. Everything is hunky-dory. First of all, there has to be a realization of trouble. That is the basis of Bhakti Yoga. Oh, I am separated. That's called Virah or Viyog. Oh, I am separated. I am separated and I would love to be united. I am separated and I would love to be united. That's Bhakti. I am separated and I would love to be united. From Bhakti follows Gyaan. I want to be united, but how do I be united? What caused the separation in the first place? That's Gyaan Yoga, knowing yourself. And once I see that what causes the separation is something petty called ego within me, then I stop listening to the ego. And what does the ego always talk of? Demands and desires, wants, nothing else. That's all that the ego has. The ego is an incomplete entity and is always therefore talking of desires and demands. Give me this, give me that. And when I look closely at myself, I realize that the separation has been caused by the ego. The ego itself is the separation from the beloved. So I stop listening to the ego and I start acting in ways that are very different from the ways of the ego. That is the yoga of action, Karma Yoga. These three are just the same thing. And in a true seeker, you will find these three together. If the person is genuine, it will be impossible for you to tell whether he is Bhakti Margi or Gyaan Margi or Karma Yogi. You cannot tell that. And if you can very clearly say, oh, this fellow belongs to Bhakti, then that fellow is a fraud. If you can very clearly say, oh, he's a Gyaan Margi, I do not see any bhakti in him, then that fellow is an equal fraud. The right person would have all these three concurrently in him or her. Bhakti, Gyaan, Karma. When you will look at him in a moment of action, you will feel like saying he is a Karma Yogi. When you will look at him in a moment of meditation, you will feel like saying, oh, he's a Gyaan Yogi. And when you will look at the depth of his love, you will be convinced that he is a Bhakti Margi. The fact is, he'll always be all three, depending on the situation. Some part of his personality will come to the fore. So sometimes you will think he is a man of action. When I say he, it includes she, all mankind. Just old habit, nothing else.
It's kind of, I don't know, just kind of weird having to correct himself there. But obviously, when we should understand that when we talk about people, it's just a generalization. I believe the Old English is, if you want to talk about everyone, it's usually he, or if you don't know the gender of the person, you say he. Just then he becomes more of a genderless, I guess, pronoun or whatever. I hated English, but it's very, I don't know. I get what it's trying to say, and I do the same thing too.
In the moment of action, you will feel like saying, oh, he is a Karma Yogi. See, all the time he is just acting, working, doing. When you will maybe speak to him to understand something, you will say, oh, he is a Gyaan Yogi. Look at the depth of his realization. Look at his eyes and his mind. He just scans through all the nonsense. He can see through us and through himself. So he is a Gyaan Margi. And when you will look at the underlying foundation of his life, you will only find love. Only find love. And then you will say, oh, no, we were mistaken. He's a Bhakt. He's a devotee. Any of these conclusions is just partial and incomplete. The complete fact is that the genuine individual has to be the three at once. All three together at once. A devotee, a seeker of truth,
Gyaan.
And an actor.
Karma.
In action, he will be unstoppable. In realization, he will be ruthless.
He'll know the truth.
He will not spare the ego. The ego will say, no, do not know me, because when you throw some light on me, I suffer. The ego revels in darkness, no? So Gyaan is something that the ego hates. The moment you throw light on ego, the ego starts to vaporize like the vampires you have in the movies. And when you will try to understand why he is acting the way he does,
out of love,
why he wants to look deeply at life, at people, at himself, at environment, at animals, at everything, then you will realize, oh, maybe the love is not visible on the surface, but this chap is acting surely only from love. So he is definitely a devotee.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right there. But yeah. So I've always known that these, like, even when I first started this, I've listened to all three and I thought about it. It's like, well, it's kind of hard, just to do one. You're going to have a little bit of a blend of all of them. I do remember Swami Sarvarpiyananda and a few other Swamis and Gurus saying that some people may fall into one more than another. Religious people tend to fall into bhakti a lot more than anything else. They're purely devotion. Those intellectuals, I suppose, maybe Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. Those, we take actions every day. We think every day. So karma kind of just goes along with everything. Something that we cannot do without, because we have to think, we have to do. Jnana Yoga, thinking of who we are, that's something that's not necessarily always what we have to do. when you're fully devoted, you do always have to take action. You can be Bhakti and Karma, or Gyana and Karma, realizing who you are and taking appropriate actions, or being devoted and taking appropriate actions. I wonder... But I guess to be fully enlightened, you kind of need all three, because you not only... Well... I've heard some people say that, if you're fully Bhakti Yoga, fully devoted, you can be enlightened. Again, I don't want to say I'm confused, but it's more along the lines like I hear certain things, and for me, obviously, you're going to do a little bit of everything. You could fall very much into one very heavily. Again, Bhakti being a very easy one to explain, especially those with religious beliefs. Karma, again, something that we do every day. We think and we do. We take action. Gyana, who we are not. It's not. A lot of people don't really do that too much, especially if they don't look inwardly. In Bhakti, you don't have to. You just devote yourself. Karma, you don't have to necessarily, but it definitely helps. If you look inwardly and see that you're a good person, you will act karma in a good way. But Bhakti can be another way of doing that. Is that instead of following your own inner compass, your own inner moral compass, you can follow Bhakti Yoga, follow your deities' examples of what is good and what is bad. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, and I kind of see this in the world with religion, of course. Anyways, that's at least part one of this one. Let me know your thoughts. I don't know if I blew people's minds or I said absolutely nothing good. So anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.